Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar here to talk about the Ontario Coaching Report 2023. I'm really excited to have you and to be able to talk about coaching and the report findings with you today. There's also going to be a great opportunity for you to ask us questions and poke around into the report data, and anything you really need to know about it, we can answer. Um, First, I want to acknowledge we're presenting from the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, which is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people as well. I'm going to take us over the agenda a little bit, and then I'll introduce myself and Sarah here in a little more detail. We're going to cover what the Ontario Coaching Report is really quickly, why and how we created it. So a little bit of behind the scenes, a little bit about what the data it gives us and the data it doesn't give us. And then we're going to talk about the highlight learnings from the report and provide some opportunities for questions and answers. We're going to talk about the recommendations that the report showed us, and there's some Q&A there as well. And we'll talk about how you can help, and even more Q&A. If you have anything else at the end, you can throw that in there. Inside the Zoom webinar platform here, there is a Q&A button on the little control tab that logs your question, so we can see it. So feel free to drop questions in there at any time, including right now as we're going through the report. So as they come up, throw them into there. Please use that feature. Okay, so you can probably guess which one's me. That's me, Stuart McLaren, on the one side there, and I'm a lead in program development here and one of the leads on the coaching report card project. And my partner here is Sarah Kelly. It was also involved in the project. Sarah, you want to say a little about yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Stuart. And thanks to everybody for taking the time to join us, whether it's on your lunch hour or just part of your afternoon here. We're really excited about this project. It's been a year in the works here, and to get to share it with everybody now is really exciting for us. So thank you very much. My name is Sarah Kelly, and I've been with the CAO here for just over 5 years, and I work on a lot of the community programs as well as our sponsorships and partnerships. And yeah, Stuart mentioned we've both, along with our colleague Eric McLaughlin, been co-leading this exciting project.
Thanks, Sarah. So a little about the Coaches Association of Ontario, that's us. If you don't know, we're an independent nonprofit organization, and we support coaches from community level to high performance across all sports. So we work grassroots coaching, high performance, everywhere in between, and we do every sport across the province. There's 65 official sports and many less official ones we also support. What type of things we do? Well, we do everything a coach needs. We do coach development, so education and training. We help with funding opportunities for coaches and clubs. We do events for coaches, including summits and PD events. We do awards, recognition. We try to do recruitment as well. And we, of course, deliver the NCCP, the National Coaching Certification Program. You can learn more about us on our website. We'll share those links later on. I'm going to have Sarah just talk about our amazing partnership with Hydro One.
Yes, as I mentioned, part of my role at CAO is working with our partners and sponsors, and Hydro One is absolutely an integral partner for us here at CAO. Through their community investment programs, they are absolutely committed to building safe communities across Ontario and where people live, where they work, and where they play. And together since 2019, we have been partnering in our Safe Sport 101 initiative. That includes all of our Safe Sport 101 resources, some granting programs, our little NHL partnership. And this year, our new initiative with them was the report card. So we could not do this without them, and we are incredibly grateful for all of their support and investment in this project.
Thanks, Sarah. Okay, so let's get into it. So what is the Ontario Coaching Report? Well, it's a snapshot of the state of coaching in Ontario right now. The questionnaires and the survey data was done just in this fall. So in August and September is when we collected the data. And we're already presenting it to you here, well, in November, December. So it's very recent. A little bit more, it's a comprehensive data set. So we looked at well, everything in the report that you've seen, but age, what age people coach, what context they coach in, how much training they have, why they coach, why they still coach, their motivations, what type of challenges they're facing, issues around safe sport, and more. So we really dug into it as much as we possibly could. The why and how it was created. So, we wanted to answer all those questions. There isn't a lot of big, sector-wide data on coaching. There's some sport-specific stuff. There's some very small stuff to, maybe to Canada Games coaches or stuff that's more localized to a particular region. But at CAO, we service the entire Ontario sports sector of coaches, and we wanted to know what challenges they're facing and who they are, what they're all about, so we can serve them better. As mentioned before, this was a partnership with Hydro One that helped pay and fund this big project and allowed us to use Ledger, which is the market research company that helped us with administering the survey, and they're Canada's largest Canadian-owned market research company. So, we got the biggest and the best for this, so the data is very, very good. Overall, 1,000 coaches across Ontario from 80 sports contributed to the report. So that's great to see. This is just a fun one. Here's all the sports, and there might have been a couple that even didn't make it onto this list. So if you're wondering what are all these 80 sports, I didn't think there were so many. Well, they're there. And this page is also on the back of the report, so you can check that out. These are also lots of the sports that we as CAO support and service in Ontario. Okay, what is a coach? This may seem obvious, but I wanted to share this with you. I think it's relevant for the survey data we're about to see, how we defined coach in the survey. So coaches who were given this survey were asked to this question: in the last 2 years, have you provided any sport coaching, instruction, or mentorship to an individual, group, or team in terms of recreational or sporting activity? And that was our definition of what a coach is. And so if they said yes, then they did the survey for us. And if they said a variety of other no answers, they did not. It's a little bit of a wide spectrum compared to what we might typically think of a coach. Someone who's like, coaching at a club, coaching teenagers in a competitive sort of stream, or maybe something like that. But we think that it's relevant to capture data from the whole spectrum of coaching that takes place in Ontario. These are all sport leaders working with youth, teaching them, and adults as well, actually, and teaching them how to engage in physical activity, new skills, and all the soft skills of coaching, such as leadership, overcoming adversity, all those sorts of things. So that's why some of this data might be a little different from other information you've seen, that we were able to use Ledger to get real full demographic data of coaching across the province. Okay, so the data gives us a good overview of coaching in Ontario, identifies themes and trends, and it highlights where coaches are excelling and where they're struggling. It doesn't do sport-specific data very well. We didn't really look at that. It might be something we look at in future reports, but because the data is split up over those 80 sports, any individual sport is kind of a small chunk. So it's looking at coaching in a broad spectrum. Of course, each sport is different, and although there are some themes and similarities between sort of like sports, if you think about your school gym sports like a basketball and volleyball, they have a lot more similarities between, say, equestrian and alpine ski. So some sports are very, very different. We're aware of that, and that's the type of data that we get, is this sort of general lens. Okay, so if you have any questions about the making of the report, throw it into the Q&A. You might not, just kind of going over the intro here, and I'm about to dive into the findings. So I think it's open. You can use that section, throw them in there. But I'm going to continue on, and I'll stop if I see any that come up, okay? Or we'll answer them in the next section.
We do have a hand up here, Stuart. So I'm just going to, Martine here has her hand up, so I'm just going to invite her to ask her a question.
Okay, great.
Martine, please ask away.
You'll have to unmute Martine if you're go for it.
Or if you're more comfortable, you're definitely welcome to type your question in the chat or send it directly to one of us as well. Yeah, I'll keep an eye out for that. But Stuart, I think we'll keep going.
Great,
While you
great.
go.
I'll catch it in the next section. Okay, so some highlights from the report. So I know some of you have already poked through the full report, both the website had some highlights, and then you could download the PDF and look through it all. But I'm going to talk through some of the highlights in a little more detail, provide some context for you. So one thing is that coaching is done by almost everyone in Ontario. So 1 in 4 adult Ontarians has coached at some point in their lifetime. And that is a lot. That is a lot. And it means that it covers really the entire breadth of Ontarians. So every age, race, physical, mental ability, sexual orientation, income level, level of education. It's something that we all do. And so I think this highlights that it's important for Ontario for us to understand what's going on with coaching and to get it right, because it's something that impacts us all. You can see a little bit of the highlight charts there around the age and the gender. And of course, it's something that more men do than women. And it's something that younger people are a little bit more engaged in. And I'll come back to that stat in a little bit. The majority of coaching takes place at the grassroots context. So you can see in the sport context there. And if you remember that definition of coaching, which is quite broad, it's probably why we got such a big group of grassroots coaches, but we think that's important to understand. A lot of what we think about when we think about coaching supports and programs for coaches and coaching development is in that performance area, maybe that up development 11%, or even those smaller, higher percentages. And grassroots is sort of an entry level, doesn't get as much attention, we think, in the sector, but we're going to be looking to change that a little bit. And school sports also quite relevant. That's about 1/3 of coaching takes place inside schools, and they're running in the school sports system. No surprise there, but it's good to know that that's a big part of coaching. Coaches are also coaching primarily youth, 7 to 12 and 3 to 6. Adolescents are also a big group, and then it goes down as you go into adulthood. And coaches are primarily volunteers, so 76% are volunteers. One question we've gotten from a few people already through some other question methods is the paid section there. It says 14% are paid, but only 4 coaches say they're paid a salary. So what's that? What do those two numbers mean? It means that sometimes a coach is paid an hourly wage or a small honorarium. So if you think about a swim instructor, or maybe a coach at your club receives a small honorarium to cover some of their expenses. Those fall in the honorarium category, or if they're paid hourly, that falls in the paid category, but they're not making a full salary. So only 4% of coaches would be considered sort of doing it at the professional, as a profession. Coaching is almost unanimously a positive experience. The exact number is in the report. It's 98% of coaches who did the survey said that it was a positive experience for them, either somewhat or very positive. So it's a very high number. It's overwhelmingly they enjoy it. Looking at some of their motivations there that they gave us, and they could select sort of all the motivations that apply to them. That's why those numbers add up to more than 100%. So giving back to the community is a big one, staying connected to their sport. Coaching their child is also important there. So a lot of the motivations, and that list does go longer and longer. They could put anything in they wanted. Were kind of altruistic motivations about supporting their community. And we asked what coaches are most proud of, and there was a lot of themes that came out there, but mostly teaching kids and to learn, grow, develop, and really sort of that giving back lens is the big highlight here. We asked about safe sport and training and education, and only about half of coaches have completed any sort of safe sport training or information. Some didn't really even know what the word meant. This is obviously a new thing that's coming out in the last few years, but there is quite a bit of press and educational modules around it. Some have engaged quite a bit with it, so it sort of varied that way. This image here is around a question we asked around hazing, and we asked coaches if they sort of aware of hazing that takes place at their club, whether on their team or another team at their organization. And about a third of coaches said that they did take place at their club. And then we asked them, well, are you trying to stop it, or is it okay? Do you think it's okay with the way you do it? And so that 82% is of those 33%, of that third of coaches that have experience with hazing at their club, but 80% are okay with it as it exists. Either they think it's part of team building, or the way they do it is okay in terms of the way they look at it. And only 18% that remaining there was trying to stop it. So I think that's something that clubs need to definitely be aware of, and parents probably are also interested too, as well as coaches thinking about your own club. So we're going to probably dive deeper into this question in a future report to find out sort of the more of the nitty gritty. But it was a surprising find for us that this was still so prevalent. We asked coaches about the challenges they're facing when it comes to their coaching. And to be honest, I was hoping to find 2 or 3 challenges that stood out amongst a long list and say, okay, well, we can focus on these 2 or 3 things and to help coaches in Ontario. However, what we found was pretty much all of them, at least the ones that we had given them as options, and were major challenges. You know, as much as 60% of coaches said this was a challenge for them, and you know, on the lower end, like 45% saying it's a challenge. So that's pretty high as well. So we realized that these factors are really affecting coaches in a significant way and across the sports spectrum, right? Across these 80 sports, across the grassroots to high performance levels. There was an other box too. They could throw in anything else they wanted, so they didn't have to pick our choices. So that was surprising to us, and a big wake-up call to look at these sort of challenges coaches are facing and see if there's more ways we can support them. You'll notice the highest challenge was the time commitment. Almost 60% said the time commitment to become a coach was a challenge. We also asked coaches who said that they no longer coach, that they quit, about why they quit. And you'll see here that a lot of the reasons are the same ones that are here in the challenges. So what does that mean? It means that not only are these things challenges, but they are challenges that are driving coaches to leave coaching. They're the same reasons that they are leaving coaching, despite saying that the experience of being a coach is a 98% positive experience. Some of the results of that is 65% of coaches on the survey said that their organization has a hard time finding enough each year. And looking at the data around how long people have been coaching, only about 30% of coaches have been coaching for 6 years or more. So most of them don't make it to that 6-year mark. When we all looked at why they drop out, looked at all these reasons, this is for them to select the top reason, the number one reason, which is pretty safe to assume that's the primary reason they quit. You can see they selected all different things. So, you know, every single one of these is a reason that caused a coach to leave coaching and leave sport. One thing that we really highlighted from this data that kind of was a highlight for us was that a lot of these reasons are sort of these challenges that are being forced out. Of course, someone might retire, someone might move, someone might be interested in coaching their kid and they age out of the sport, and that's sort of like a natural reason to stop. But a lot of these reasons are not natural reasons. These are sort of like the stresses and demands and challenges of coaching are forcing them out when they might have otherwise continued. So we have this few little stats that is also in the report. So most of coaches are unpaid volunteers. The demands are very high on them. Those demands are also why they stop coaching. Most clubs don't have trouble finding enough coaches every year, and the coaches that do are there. Only about 30% last more than 5 years. So that really highlights some of the challenges inside coaching as we see it right now, and that goes into the recommendation section. So if you have I see there's actually a couple in there already, so I'm going to get to those in 1 second. But if you have a question coming out of the content, something I just presented, or something you've read in the report, throw it into the Q&A right now.
So we've got
Okay,
two in the Q&A here.
yeah, kind of. Do you want to
Sorry.
read them out, Sarah?
Sure. So the first one is it says some sports only go one time a week and some go 6 times a week. Any data on how these numbers change as the sport commitment changes?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in terms of the commitment for the coach, um, there is a little bit of data actually, where we in the public report we gave you sort of the top line data, and we have some more second level data. Then there's like a scary Excel sheet with hundreds of pages of code that looks a little crazy. In there, we found that coaches in the grassroots sort of section are less stressed, and it's a little bit of a less challenges for them. You can imagine they might be coaching 6-year-old soccer, which, as you pointed out, might be once a week, and that's so there's just less pressures on them. Someone who's coaching teenagers, maybe competitive travel hockey, that's a lot of time each week, a lot of sections, and it still might be a volunteer position or a small honorarium. So those coaches had a higher threshold of saying, oh, okay, these challenges are really affecting me, especially the commitment level. So that's definitely true.
All right. So the second question here was around the hazing question. So great question here. Was the word hazing used? It seems like a negative topic for so many people to feel okay about. Um,
Yeah,
and
I can answer that,
yeah,
Kendra. Yeah,
absolutely.
it's a great question. Yeah, we actually did use the word hazing. So hazing kind of has a negative connotation to it. So we didn't use a more neutral term like sort of a team building exercise or something like that, which can be a positive thing for you to do. We asked them, if they're aware of hazing that takes place at their club. And they had a couple options. They could say, yeah, no. And in the yes, they had 3 options. They could say, yes, but the way we do it is okay. Yes, but it's part of team building. Or yes, but we're trying to stop it. So those first 2 yeses are that 82% sort of group, and all three is that 33. So it is pretty high. Um, but we think that it's it's something to look into. It's something to look into, but it's definitely something that has a long history in sport, as you probably know, and in teams and cultures. And we'll have to look into a little bit more in the future to see if it's coming from particular areas of the sports sector or age groups, things like that.
Okay. Great question here in the chat box actually was um, what is hazing?
What is hazing? Well, I'm going to give you 2 answers here. So the first answer is the report, the survey did not actually define it. We left it open for the coach to sort of interpret that as they saw fit. Um, However, hazing is usually defined as sort of uh, an aspect of initiation to joining a team for new members, or something that's done sort of at the start of the season or when someone joins the team that is often a rather stressful or sort of negative
An
experience, right?
initiation.
An initiation sort of piece for a rookie sort of party, that sort of thing, and is often something that the new person does not want to participate in, but feels forced to do to be a member of the team or organization. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next section, but feel free to keep throwing questions into that box. We'll get to them at the final Q&A. Okay, so recommendations for coaches. So the report highlighted a couple recommendations for all the groups involved, or for 3 different groups: coaches, parents, and the sport organization as a whole. So some recommendations for coaches that come out of the report is to access existing coaching supports. One thing that coaches weren't aware of is that, although there are challenges around funding and mentorship and training, we actually do have a lot of programs to support them. And a lot of them weren't aware that they existed, right? And of course, that makes sense. It's, it takes time when you start coaching to learn about the whole sport system, to get connected into things like the Coaches Association of Ontario, your provincial sport body, and other funding mechanisms. So there is some support there, and awareness is a big piece. Take training and education. I know it's on the one hand, it's another ask for a coach to do, but we found that coaches who had training and education, either in NCCP, concussion, safe sport, felt more confident and better able to handle those challenges when they came up. So there's a little bit of a time commitment to obviously do them, but there is a payoff on the other side for the coach. It makes their life a little bit easier. One key thing, one big challenge that came out of the report is actually parents. Coaches found that dealing with parents and as well as clubs to be a big challenge. And some of the best advice that we've been able to gather is to really deal with setting expectations at the beginning of the season, both with your parents. And we have some information and resources on the website around dealing with parents, as well as with the club. Make sure you speak to the club and the organizations there around what they're expecting of you as a coach for that season. Make sure that's a good fit. And finally, connect with other coaches. A lot of the information in this report, if you are a coach and you say, oh yeah, that's definitely a challenge I'm facing or something I experience, or maybe that's also why I coach. These experiences are shared across all the coaches at your club. And coaching can often be a bit isolating, right? My team might only have one or two coaches, and you guys are interacting with your team, but your other fellow coaches at your club and within your sport and even outside your sport are sharing those same experiences and might have some tips or at least some camaraderie about those challenges. Recommendations for parents. So we have some recommendations for parents as well. Parents are like a big part of the sports system, and they're probably ones that we don't engage with enough as sort of sport leadership organizations. So we think that parents should be informed to certainly ask about safe sport policies at their club, training policies, codes of conduct, that sort of thing. Understand the coach's role. So understand what the coach's role is and isn't. Remember that most coaches are unpaid volunteers, that they're dealing with, there's only one coach you're dealing with, or maybe two, but they're dealing with 10 or 20 parents. And that they're facing a lot of challenges in this role. Ask your coach how you can help. They have a lot of, one thing that coaches expressed was that there's a lot of non-coaching roles that are tasks that are part of being a coach, administrative pieces, organizational pieces that they could really use their help with without having to step into that coach role of being on the field or getting training. And consider taking up coaching yourself. We asked coaches if they were parents and if it was a positive experience. And again, 98% said coaching their old child was a positive experience. So something that definitely to consider. Recommendations for the sports sector. This is the third one, last one here is the coaches need more support. That's something that came out of it. It's both a benefit to the coaches to have the role of taking on this mostly volunteer position to be less challenging, as well as keeping them engaged in coaching probably longer, helping with that recruitment issue long-term. The more you can support them, the better. NCCP, safe sport, code of conduct training, all of these sort of things are within the system. They're built, they exist, but they're not quite mandated or required at the level they probably should be. I understand that all these sort of things, training, education, background checks, they do take a little bit of time and they require a little bit of an ask from both the club administration or the sport and the coach, but they help the coach long term feel more confident about navigating the whole sports system as well as the coaching. So everyone wins in the end when we do these things. And finally, check in with existing coaches. I mean, don't wait till that coach is handing up his hat to take a pulse and see what's going on. A lot of those coaches highlighted conflicts in their organization with parents, with clubs, as some of their biggest challenges. So see if there's a way you can support them at a very sort of one-to-one grassroots level. Maybe it's helping negotiate with a parent or with another coach at the club, or something with maybe a sport administration issue. I'm going to poke and see if there's any more questions in the chat. I don't see any, but feel free to throw them in. I'm about to go to the open section. I have a few more, one more slide, I think, or two. So please get those questions ready. So how you can help. Consider reports findings in your approaches to sport leadership. So if you're a coach and you engage with sport leadership that way, think about their findings if you're involved in club administration or sport administration. If you're a parent and you're supporting sport engagement through that way, there's also a role for you to play. As well, you can share the report and the information in the Safe Sport 101 website with people at your club, other parents, your other coaches at your club. I think it's great for people to know what's going on in sport and coaching in Ontario. Okay, so Sarah, I'm going to open it up for the Q&A. I mean, one part of this webinar is to highlight some of the findings and give you some behind the scenes information. But another one is to really provide you with an opportunity to ask questions that came out of looking at the data and reading the report, thinking about the data in relation to your own coaching context, your own club, things you might be dealing with. So I'm going to give it a little bit of time for people to throw questions in there.
Right. So you can either raise your hand or and I can open it up for you to chat and talk to us live, or you're welcome to put it into the Q&A box or into our webinar chat if you have any direct questions for us. I just see one coming in the private chat here, and with regards to concussions, was there anything in the report that suggests what type of coaches feel best prepared to deal with concussions?
Yeah, that's a great question. There is a NCCP e-learning module called Making Headway, which teaches you about concussion. And there's a couple other concussion training resources that you can find on our website and some other places as well. Coaches that had some education in concussion, as well as had NCCP training more generally. So they might have taken the NCCP training for their sport status. They definitely felt better about being able to make the right choices in terms of athlete safety. So they felt more confident about how to make those choices and what to do. That's a question we asked. The data wasn't presented here today, but it definitely is in that report there. So that goes back to thinking about training and education as something that coaches need help learning about the existence of, finding, and being motivated to go to. But once they get there, it does help them in the long run.
Okay. We have another question coming in here. This is a great question. I think a lot of people have experienced this. What would you do if you have long-term coaches and they refuse to take extra training? I've lost 2 coaches who would not complete courses.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it is a challenge. It is absolutely a challenge, and it's a challenge for a couple reasons. Some of those we're working on. So one is cost, but CAO does have a grant that can provide most of the fees back in terms of bursary to the coach, about 60 or 70%, I believe. One is accessing the time to do it. We try to run our courses in a flexible way. So there's in-person, online, like live webinar, as well as home study, which is like independent learning. And a lot of the sport-specific stuff is similar. There is a hurdle around kind of a pride issue that we've experienced around longtime coaches who they feel like they're being sent back to training as some sort of punishment. So I think trying to frame the opportunity around coach development opportunities and learning, and maybe not this training in terms of entry-level requirements can help with those long-term coaches. Another thing I like to share with that you can share with coaches when they're thinking about NCCP training specifically, and I've had a lot of experience talking to coaches on the phone who have expressed the same sentiment as you just mentioned, is that the NCCP since 2012 is a facilitated learning style now. So that means that it's no longer a lecture you sit and listen to, which is something that coaches who have been in the system a while would have experienced previously. It is now facilitated. So there's a lot of group discussion. You break out, you talk amongst other coaches in the class. and then you come back and present. There's debriefing. What that means is that coaches with a lot of experience, like the ones at your club, 10, 20 years of experience, actually have a lot to benefit the other coaches in the room. So it's valuable to have experienced coaches in these training sessions for the new coaches. That's trying to how I try to sell it to them. It's the best bet. I think that we can do a better job explaining the value proposition to our older coaches because they do have a lot of value to keep them in the system. They have a lot of experience that is also still valuable.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, I think too, if you do have other coaches who have taken the training that can be, within your club, or your organization that can be like the champions or the spokespeople for those trainings after they've taken it. I'm thinking about a coach we had recently who took Make Ethical Decisions, and she wrote us afterwards, and basically she said, like, I was not looking forward to this. I work, 80 hours a week. I believe she said her dad taught ethics previously, and she's like, I thought I probably knew everything I needed to know, and this was just, going to be something that ate up my precious time off, which I can understand. But she said she was blown away by how much she actually learned in the course and how much she enjoyed it, and the opportunity to talk with other coaches and work through some of these scenarios with other coaches. So I think, if you have other people that have taken training and they can kind of like be that champion for it with people who are a little more hesitant, that can go a long way as well.
Great, Sarah. Okay, let's take the next question.
All right. So I've got one here just asking about parents and parent conflict. So one reason why coaches quit is parent conflict. Does this mean the parents of students who are in conflicts with coaches? Can you please elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So there was an open box where the coaches responding could put more detail in besides just clicking off parents and provide a little bit of context. So I have read through most of those. It comes in a bunch of different ways. One of it is, the primary issue is that the coach has experience coaching the team, right? Coaching sport. They're likely to have some training in coaching, and they have a set of values and what they're trying to do with the team. And it's having a conflict between that and then the individual parent who is maybe overinvested in their child. So a little bit of backseat driving going on. And it's not that the other parent might be wrong, but if you have 20 parents on a team, there's 20 ways to run the team, and the coach has to run it the way that they are trained to do it, as well as their own philosophy and their own approach. So there's conflicts there that relate to, then all the small things come out of this around playtime, around basically every issue comes out of that.
I think a lot of parents also default to the way that they themselves were coached as well, because that's their experience. So, that can also cause conflict when when that isn't the way that a current coach coaches, especially like with all of the training and education around like safe sport and positive coaching now, and moving it forward in that direction. So I think Safe Sport 101, we have some great resources for working with parents on there. It's Coaches Ontario. Our Safe Sport 101 website is there in the chat here at safesport101.coachesontario.ca. And we have some templates in terms of like, starting your season off right, working with parents, how to do some expectation setting through meetings with them, through a start of season meeting, getting everybody to sign a code of conduct, really getting everybody on the same page right at the beginning of the season, in terms of what to expect in terms of communication, how to communicate, behavior that's expected from everybody, so that you have a document to really like refer to as the season goes on, where everybody is committed to acting in a certain way, all pulling the same direction for the betterment of like the athletes and participants.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. And Sarah's right. There's really two things when it comes to parents that we would first recommend. One is that parent meeting at the beginning of the season. That's really the best practice we've seen to set those expectations, as well as allows you to have that back and forth with a parent around what might happen or what they expect before you're dealing with a specific case. And the second one she highlighted, which is true, is we talk about this training and education pieces and all these new things around safe sport, and we are sending coaches to them, but we are not sending parents to them. And so parents are sort of we're trying to bring parents into that learning cycle. All right, next question there. I see one from Clarence Brown.
Right. Have you looked at the number of coaches who are getting paid and have not had any training?
Yeah, that's a great question, Clarence. There is a section in the report. It's page 28 that looks at the difference between volunteer and paid coaches. So definitely check that out. I'll highlight two things from it. Paid coaches are more likely to have NCCP training. About 73% of them have NCCP training compared to volunteer coaches, which are about 35. So there's a huge difference. Those paid coaches are more likely to have gone through certain training and coaching requirements to do that position. And volunteer are less than 50%. So there is a big difference there.
Right. And I've got another question here from Corey. Are you aware of any interactive or virtual programs geared towards sports that are available to help teenagers with emotional and behavioral regulation?
I don't know anything off the top of my head. I know that this is definitely a topic that the sports sector is looking into, and I think we've run some sessions at some of our past summits, coaching summits, which are often free or quite affordable to attend. They're usually virtual, and I think we have an in-person one coming up in Hamilton pretty soon around this. We ran one last fall around phone use, which is also something that triggers emotion and behavior regulation. Really interesting. And I know the Coaches Association of Canada is looking at some e-modules that look into some of these topics, but I don't have anything specific. I think it's I think it's an important issue, and that's something that coaching, as Workville have brought up more, that behavioral regulation and with this current youth group, a cohort of youth coming through. I don't know if it's Generation Z or Alpha now, is a little bit of a different challenge for coaches that they're facing. So it's something that we could look more into.
Yeah, I can add to that a little bit with some of the programming we've done with youth coaching. We were looking at we run program called Jumpstart into Coaching for youth coaches, and we were looking for education this topic around emotional and behavioral regulation. And there was really we ended up running a one-off workshop that was in person and facilitated by Canadian Centre for Mental Health and Sport. But that was something we had to have curated for us. We did do quite a bit of research at the time to see what was available in terms of workshops ready to go or online virtual learning, and it's definitely a gap right now. There's an opportunity for whether it's CAC or whomever to come in and make something in that space, because I think, as Stuart said, it's something that people are asking more about, especially emotional awareness as well, so that people are more aware of people coming from different backgrounds, trauma-informed coaching, all of that kind of lens when it comes to working with different populations. So I think it's a great thing to bring up, and I think there's a huge opportunity there.
Thanks, sir. Okay, I'm going to give you guys a last call for questions. If you've been something, please throw it into the box there.
Yeah.
Using
And
the little Q&A button.
if there's anything that comes up later too, I know there's a lot of information to digest in this report. So if there are questions that you come up with overnight or over the next few weeks, please reach out to us, and we'd be happy to chat further.
Absolutely. Sarah and my email is listed on the website under Contact Us. Okay, if you throw it in there, I will answer it, but I'll show you this last slide while that's waiting. We're going to promote this report throughout the year and continue to use its data in different initiatives that we do throughout 2024 coming up, especially into the winter and spring. We're going to connect with the Ontario sports sector with the data and help them learn about it as well, and hopefully use it to better support coaches, especially around those challenging areas. One amazing highlight is we're going to run the report again next year, probably around this similar time of year, with different questions, some similar, some new ones. So we're definitely going to do that. If there's something you'd love us to ask, let us know. Send us an email. Say, can you ask this next year? And we'll see if we can, if it fits in with the report. Collecting data on Ontario's coaches is something that we want to continue to do over the years to better support them.
And I think to Stuart's point as well, about asking different questions, there's definitely some findings in this one that we've gone, oh, we really want to dig into this more, whether it is hazing, whether it is, exactly what within that umbrella of parents, what specifically are those pain points, or, with training, how do we get people, what is it specifically that makes someone not take training? Like digging into those topics, on top of, I mean, we could probably have enough questions for about 5 different reports, but specifically with some of those findings, we realize that there's a lot more that we want to know, that we think can help make sport better overall. So we'll be following up on some of those threads from this year's report and next one.
Okay, great. Well, I don't see any more questions in the chat program. I do see a few comments. That's great. Thanks for sharing those. As Sarah mentioned, if you have any other questions, you can always email us, and we'll be happy to answer them and help. And yeah, again, please help share the report. Share that Safe Sport 101 coaching report page with anyone you think might be relevant. Everything is easily laid out there. It's totally free for you to access. And I think the more people learn about what's going on in coaching in Ontario, the better the system overall will be.
Yeah, I've dropped a few links into the chat here. One of them is for our Safe Sport 101 site. Again, at safesport101.coachesontario.ca. And that hub also has free resources, including our Safe Sport 101 playbook, which is a series of modules. They are free to take. They are interactive, and they are about 8 to 10 minutes each, all about creating positive and safe sport. You can self-report those for PD points as well. So they are a great training spot to start at, especially if you have coaches who, say they don't have time for training. As we all know, coaches are super, super busy people. Those are, what we like to call a sandwich learning, something you can do on your lunch break in between meetings, that type of thing. There's also downloadable resources on a lot of the topics that we talked about today, and links to sites that, like the concussion toolkit. If you're looking for a code of conduct template to do with your organization or your team, that would be on there. Starting your EPIC police check application, that is on there too. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of safe sport resources that are free to download, training that's free to take. So definitely check that out. And then our direct to coach bursary. I know we've mentioned NCCP a lot of times, and I see a comment in the chat about please continue to promote NCCP. Absolutely, like it is a phenomenal program. And we want more coaches to take it, but we know, there is an expense to it. So our direct to coach bursary link is in the chat here. And the list of courses that are eligible will be on that page as well. So, whether you're a club or an individual coach, if you're a club, you can share it with your coaches. That's one way to help make NCCP training more accessible for everybody.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, those are great. And we will reshare those links in the chat there for you guys one more time. Okay, well, thank you so much, everyone, for attending, for making time on your lunch break to join us here. We're going to wrap the webinar here, but again, you can reach out to us at any time as Coaches Ontario, and we'll be happy to support you anything related to this report, as well as anything coaching related in the province. So if you're a coach in Ontario, we work for you, is how I say it. Okay, thanks again.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.